Hi guys, so for today's video I'm going to be reviewing a new movie that... Hello, you want to sit on my lap now that I've started filming? Of course you do. Hi. So if you have been living under a rock, or perhaps you just don't use Twitter, because that's personally how I find out about everything. A few weeks ago, the trailer and poster was released for a new Netflix movie called Cuties. This is originally a French film, and on Netflix they have the dubbed version. And it caused a lot of backlash and criticism because of the description and poster. Again, if you haven't seen it, I'm not going to put it on here because I don't want any of that on my channel. I'm just going to talk about it. But the poster was a group of girls who are supposed to be 11 years old in tight, small dance outfits, doing sexual poses and all of that sort of, you know, shit. And the description was about an 11-year-old girl joining a twerking group. Like the focus of the description was that she was joining a twerking dance group. So as you can imagine, it just looked like a very shallow film that was going to just depict a lot of child sexualization. So naturally that caused a lot of issues amongst the general public. And then people were trying to defend it, saying that's not the purpose of the movie, or we have to give it a chance, or we haven't seen it yet. So I figured I just want to watch it myself and see if it's actually as bad as we all first thought. Turns out it's worse. It's so much worse. This movie has come out literally 2 days ago, and a video popped up on my YouTube feed about it, which reminded me that it was even coming out in the first place. So I went and watched it, and oh my god, I will never get that time back. First of all, I want to say that I don't think this movie is justifying child sexualization. It is trying to show it as a bad thing. It just massively fails, and at the same time adds to the problem. But the child sexualization is just scratching the surface on what's wrong with this movie. That's just one part of it that the poster and description focused on, and then when you actually watch it you realise it's a mess. It looks like I'm crying, please ignore that. I just have something in my eye that I can't get out. Anyway, so this movie tries to deal with too many things and tries to comment on too many issues that it just totally misses the mark. So the movie started off focusing on sort of culture and religion, misogyny and gender. That's sort of where it starts off with. But then there's also bullying and violence and fat shaming and eating disorders, child marriages, and then on top of that we also have the child exploitation and the paedophilia and the child pornography. It's too much. And you could defend the film and argue that it's fiction, it's art, it's creative license. You can make movies about bad things without glorifying that bad thing. True, you can. For example, you can make movies about murder. That's a pretty bad thing. The difference is when you get a real person to pretend to be murdered, they haven't actually died. When you get an underage child to pretend to be sexually exploited, that's still an underage child being sexually exploited. That's not an adult pretending to be a child being sexually exploited. You can't get around that fact. If you use a child in your movie and sexually exploit them, you've done that. That is exactly what you've done in real life and in the movie. Is that making sense? Like, people are trying to defend this by saying it's a movie and you can make movies about bad things, but when you make movies about other bad things, they are fake in real life as well. Like, someone acting out being murdered, or even acting out being sexually abused, they're not actually being sexually abused, they're not actually being raped, they're not actually being murdered. But when it's a child being filmed by a bunch of adults dancing in a sexual way, that is still a child being filmed by a bunch of adults dancing in a sexual way. There is no way around that. Like, I don't understand why that was not think about this, right? They are playing 11-year-olds, and I only know that the main actress is 14 years old in real life. I couldn't find the ages of the other girls in the movie, but we know that it's underage. Like, 14 is still underage. It's not 11, but it's definitely underage. So you can't even use that as a justifying factor. It is still a child doing those things in real life in order for it to be recorded to be put into a movie. Like, I don't get what's hard to understand about that. These actresses have not come across this project themselves and thought, oh my god, this is a really good idea, like I really want to be part of this, I want to help make a change and show that child exploitation and child sexualization is bad. Like, that is not what's happened here. This is not a passion project for these children. Like, they have most likely been signed up to this job by their parents or their managers or their parent managers for money, you know. Like, these children, these child actresses are hired out by their managers and their parents to make money and to be in these films. They aren't out scouting these jobs themselves. So there's a little bit of a consent issue there, because how are they going to feel about this movie when they're like 20? That's another questionable issue. Like, they've been put in a situation where they are being sexually exploited in order to be in this film. So that's like a grey area. And I'm really confused where that stands legally as well. Because the thing is with this movie is that it's not just a dance scene. It's not just underage girls dancing in skimpy clothing. The way it's been filmed and the way it's been directed and shot makes it so much worse that I couldn't actually believe it. Like, it was difficult for me to watch. What I was expecting was sort of just how I would see a regular dance competition show, or like very sort of far away, you see them dancing out the routine and maybe there's a little bit of, you know, shaking and whatever else. The way this has been shot, it's like the director is trying to add to that sexualization and actually trying to make what the viewer is watching sexual. Like, it's not just showing that what's happening in the plot is sexualized, but the way it's being filmed is sexualized, and it was really uncomfortable to watch. It was like these scenes were like really drawn out, like the whole routine, and it's just up close crotch shots. Like, a lot of it is just their body, not even their face, just their body, and they're rubbing each other's butts, they're grinding on each other, they're humping the floor, they're like, I genuinely couldn't believe that I was actually watching it. It made me so uncomfortable to watch. And the thing is that everyone who's not a fucking nonce is gonna feel uncomfortable watching that. Anyone who enjoys watching that movie, that's softcore porn to them. That movie is softcore porn for paedophiles. Like, straight up, the way it's been shot is aiding the paedophiles. It doesn't make it look weird whatsoever. It makes it look purposefully sexualized. Like, that was so... That whole part of how it's been filmed was so unnecessary as far as I'm concerned. Like, I would show you what I mean, but I really just don't want that on my video. I don't want that on my channel. If you want to go watch the movie yourself because you're not a nonce, it's on Netflix, unfortunately. But like, yeah, I don't want any of that movie in this video or on my channel at all. Like, I just don't. It's gross. It's like long held eye contact with the camera of these girls biting their lip and like acting like, oh, it's just, it's too much. It's too much, to the point where you're no longer making the point you want to make, you're just adding to the problem. It's like trying to fight against animal abuse by holding up a cat and just like punching it, you know? Like, it just doesn't, that doesn't work. It doesn't work. If I'm really going to pinpoint it down to two main issues, it's the cast ages and the way it's been actually shot, and the filmography itself was just disgusting. No. It's left a bad taste in my mouth, that's for sure. So that's the main issue with the movie, and that's what the trailer and the poster and the description told us all about the movie. And as I mentioned earlier on in this video, it's trying to deal with so many touchy topics that it ends up just doing all of them a massive disjustice. Like, right at the end of the movie, there's one of the girls in the original group is bigger than the other three, right? Noticeably the odd one out in terms of size. You have 3 skinny girls and then one that's more overweight, and she's the one that gets kicked out of the group whenever she does something wrong. The others end up getting treated really horribly. One literally has their mouth washed out with soap by the other girls, but it's the bigger one that ends up actually getting kicked out. And then right at the end of the movie, they bring her back in just so they can give her a 10-second bulimia scene in the toilet, and then later on she gets pushed into a river and left to drown. Like, where the fuck did that come from? The entire movie has nothing to do with eating disorders, and then next thing you know, she's bulimic, and then she gets pushed into a river. Like, what the fuck? Then the main girl, she ends up having these hallucinations, to which I'm thinking, right, are they now trying to touch on mental health and psychosis? There's a scene where she sees blood dripping down the front of her dress, and then she sees confetti pour out of the air, and all of a sudden she like goes into this mental breakdown when she's doing the dance competition. She just goes off the rails. She's the one who pushed the other girl into the river and just left her to drown, basically. Like, she couldn't swim, the girl just stares at her and then just walks away. Like, it's all this extra shit that just made the movie ridiculous. And then another massive part of the movie is this comparison between sort of Western society and Islam. I think the main family are Muslims. There's this massive comparison to the way that the girls in the Western society are sexualized with all their twerking and dancing, and then in Islam they very much focus on the idea of arranged child marriages, because you have her nan telling her that by this age she was already engaged and going to get married. And then the same family call their daughter a whore. I am not Muslim or any kind of, you know, relation to Eastern or Asian cultures, so I'm curious to know if anyone who has seen this movie and found it like insulting or like distasteful. Like, I don't know, it's not really my place to talk about how that would make me feel, but you know, I'd be really interested to see in the comments if any of you guys have an opinion on that. During the dance competition, when they are doing this just overly sexualized routine, and you have all the disgusting up close crotch shots and the butt smushing and the floor humping and all of that, the crowd actually starts booing them, and that is the first time that you really get a clear indication that the movie is saying this is bad. However, I just found that scene very sad to watch, because they're basically just like humiliating these girls, and then nothing ever really comes of it. The movie ends pretty quickly after that, and it just seemed like this whole time they were just sexualizing these girls in the movie just to humiliate them at the end. There was never any sort of clarification on where they stood. I was sort of just left feeling like, what the fuck did I just watch? So overall, I'm going to say that no, this movie doesn't technically glorify or justify paedophilia in itself, but by trying to highlight it, unintentionally or not, they've added to the problem and just created content for said pedophiles and nonces. And I don't understand how they overlooked that, and how they didn't realize that they were making those scenes way more sexual and explicit and intense than they actually needed to be, especially when using genuinely underage cast members. I kind of feel sorry for the girls, because they don't really seem to have any other acting history besides this movie, so that's a great start to the industry, isn't it? Their managers or their parents have basically pimped them out for this movie, and that just kind of really disturbs me. Not kinda, very. I'm disturbed, I'm sad, I'm upset for these children. How much of the money is going to go to them? Like, how much are their managers or their parents pocketing from their exploitation? I think that's as much as I'm going to go on about this movie. Watch it if you want to, or don't. It's I wouldn't recommend it, but also I did watch it out of curiosity, and regretted it afterwards. So yeah, thanks for watching this video. I do a lot of lifestyle videos, and I talk about pop culture when I feel like I have a strong opinion about something that I want to share. I don't tend to make a habit of it or do it just for the sake of it. I share my opinion when, as I said, I feel strongly about something and feel like I have something unique to put to the table. I think that's the phrase. Bring to the table, bring to the table. So thank you for watching. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Give it a thumbs down if you didn't. It doesn't really matter to me that much. And I will see you in my next one.